Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. Point of this video is not a rant or anything like that, it's finally the Collusion event to talk about the inhibitor, the tick, the targets that I keep recommending, as well as what I keep using. Again, I keep using the Behemoth because, again, made a full series on how to acquire it after you get your first Sovereign Carrier, and right now it's not very easy for you to be able to get Sovereign Carrier because most targets are they're balanced towards endgame. So either grind or pay, which I don't like either option, so we're going to go with option C, which I'll explain later. For now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Inhibitor Battle Cruiser, now that I'm not going to rant about it and complain about how overpowered it is. We can go over the stats, and then counters for it. And yes, it does have counters, even though they're going to lose quite a bit of health to counter it. They still count as counters. First off, the repair time, not that bad at 1 hour and 7 minutes 38 seconds. By default, could be lower because, again, everything relates to time in the game, and the biggest problem is repair times. Repair time should never have been allowed to go over 12 hours in my opinion, and the base repair time of most ships is unacceptable, but I've just come to just see it as, okay, well, this is what it's going to be, we're just going to play with it for now. But repair time is, it could be higher, it could be lower. Health, 8,115 for the 1 hour repair tag. Not that bad, but again, could be better because, again, most targets we fight, they do extremely high damage, irrelevant of what you do. So it's naturally going to take repair time. Maximum mass, 17,000 tons. The garbage truck weighs more, and yet I still have no use for it. I'm gonna pick on it every chance I get. Cargo, oh, that ain't too bad. 2.6 million. Kicksai, consider buffing the cargo of the garbage truck because it's meant to haul stuff anyways. Mostly trash, along with itself. Ship speed. Well, since they replaced cutters because they said they had no use, which I actually found a cute pairing of ships. I actually disagree with that statement now. But 450 standard cutter speed, turning standard, strafe standard, sector speed 300 astronomical units per hour. And let's check into everything else. Phase state, what's it get? 140% increased movement speed. That's could be better, could be worse. I would rather have it be worse to make it a little bit more balanced. Exiting phase state, well, we already talked about this. For 4 seconds, it gets increased screen resistances to all damage types with the exception of alien and void. So you have 2 counters to it. Ablative suppression, it increases the threshold by 20% and it reduces the recovery by 25 points. Yeah, it would be accumulative per stack, so it would be a lot more than what it would be just there. So small number here, but you'd have a very, very high impact in combat. And also increasing the threshold by 20%, unless that means that it's damage threshold suppression, 20%. Yeah, I would think that would be a damage increase for the ship to have to achieve to get its lessened ablative recovery. And then it gets a 10% damage per second boost. I don't agree with the damage per second boost because so far, each battle cruiser that I've seen hasn't had a damage per second boost, and they've performed just fine without them, with the exception of this thing. Yeah, no damage per second boost. only increased damage versus battleships, and I think the same applies to the Manticore. No damage per second boost. Yeah, again, no damage per second boost. So, that's... I'm not going to point a finger, but I keep... Well, I'm going to have to, because I enjoy doing this too much. Quit making something that's already going to be powerful even more powerful. It doesn't need the damage boost because it's got the twin fire for a reason. So, already not even into the damage over time details, I'm already saying to remove something from the ship is damage per second boost upon it exiting phase. And now for the damage over time details. Damage threshold, 100 damage. Damage over time stacks, 2. Damage per interval, 1. Damage interval seconds, 1 second. Duration, 20. Damage type plasma. So for every 100 damage, it applies 2 stacks. That... Hold on a second. 250, 10, 1,000, 50. I know for a fact I'm dead tired right now, but I'm not crazy. That has a very weak damage over time value. And I do mean a very weak damage over time value. I actually like that. At least that's more balanced than the other stats so far. And resistances, 50% resistance to plasma since they changed everything so that each ship has a base resistance to the damage type that they're actually dealing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 50%, and then they still have their 40%, which they always have had, and I actually enjoy seeing them still having it. This thing, I still don't know why they didn't give it the 40% resistance, because it's Altaerian. And it needs to get a little bit more going for it. And even in the max mark upgrade, I still can't find much of a use for them against Pharmacon ships. I find them more viable as cargo ships and counter cutters. Or just running down Umbra stuff. That's right, I've been using them more to fight Umbra than Pharmacon, because they've just been doing a much better job of it. How funny is that? But that's about it for the ship. Overall, so far, the only 2 fights I've played in, one of which you've already seen, it's more of a tank than you would expect. And when you compare it to the other 2 battle cruisers, they're slightly more oriented towards versatility, and this one's just straight up, hey look, let's just make it a tank. That's literally what they did with this one, and it didn't need to be that. They could have given it a more versatile role without giving it extremely heavy screen resistance additions, damage per second additions. It's a stupid thought. So I would like them to reconsider and look into reworking it, even though this is its debut event. Mainly alter its defenses, because I don't see the defenses being necessary at all. I don't see the damage boosters being necessary. It's supposed to counter Umbra, and I can see it doing that just fine right here. And with the damage bonus and stuff like that, I can see it doing its job just fine. Just like with this little guy. Also, the other thing, it does do well against... Yes, I'm gonna positively highlight the garbage truck now. It does at least maintain, and it can kick in the teeth of a Trojan cruiser, even though the cruiser is supposed to counter it. It does extremely well against them for some stupid reason. And mine is equipped with the same Vulcan cannons that you saw it with during its debut event, where I initially started hating on it to begin with, and for good reason. And the only thing it's got going for it is the feedback loop, which, again, as I pointed out, it's It's a disgustingly stupid waste of time to actually build any of them if you're going to rely heavily on the phase hack, because I don't think they changed the overdrive since I pointed out that it doesn't apply to ships that are affecting it, and most of them are just going to outrange it, or they're just going to stasis it and it can't fight back. Because again, no stasis resistance built in, and only getting damage resistance to a single damage type, it lacks combatability in comparison to the Manticore, which the Manticore literally, once you get within the 2 firing arcs, it literally just gets a massive buff, increased turning, increased strafe. That's how you do that. And this is something that these 2 ships have in common that I actually just realized. Both of their overdrives enhance their rotation and their ability to strafe. It enhances their ability to maintain combat efficiency and just more or less sit on top of the enemy and just fight and maintain the fight. In the case of Renaissance, it has a bit of stasis built in that it applies to the targets after the threshold has been met, which I would actually like to point out that Kixeye should remove and alter, because it taking damage over time is a stupid waste of a ship. Again, I pointed it out before and I'm going to keep pointing it out. But other than that, the ship, the 2 battle cruisers in comparison to the new one, it's unsettling the fact that theirs went away. Well, yeah, theirs does have the speed boost because the ship speed, but at exiting phase, it just gets this heavy freaking damage resistance for its screen, making it just all the more impervious to all damage types, with the exception of Alien. And first off, not everyone's going to have access to Alien or be using Alien, because if you limit yourself to just one damage type, you're going to get screwed over in the long run, because the enemy could easily bring a single ship that counters that damage type to the tune of roughly 83% resistance against this damage type you bring. Doesn't sound too fun. The ablative suppression, just fine as I said, and the damage per second boost, again, I'm just going to keep stating this, it doesn't need it. If the other 2 cruisers don't have, the battle cruisers don't have a damage per second boost or something like that, both theirs are focused around mobility enhancements, or limiting mobility, it doesn't need it. Especially with the fact that it's as fast as it is. It has damage over time, even though the damage over time is actually extremely well balanced. It's going to be extremely good for various things. And I'm going to build an entire fleet of them, because who would I be to judge it and then not build a bunch of them just to screw around with them? That and start smashing high-level fleets because they're brokenly overpowered. Onto the tick cannon, which I was having a lot of stupid fun with that one bastion. Even after I ended the video, I was still playing with the ship, because it was just... There's something about a cannon, like the tick, that you look at it and you don't see much versatility, you don't see much combatability, but the ways in which you can set it up to just screw around and have fun with it is extremely entertaining. And it really saddens me that all high tier content is exactly that, limited to high tier. I would rather be able to unlock a gun and use it on a bunch of low tier ships with low repair time and just screw around all day long and have a good time in the game. We all know we can't do that, but that's just how I would do it, and it would be fun. Overall though, the tick cannon is, there's not much going for it, because the fact that it can miss its target so easily, the speed of an energy weapon being around that of a projectile, a kinetic weapon, it's just... What happened to high-speed energy weapons? When did they stop being 5,000 meters per second and things like that? I think there's a special coming out for them. I don't know if it's in the game files or not, or if I can just view it in this thing. We'll take a look in a second. But the low flight speed of the rounds, it's just... It limits it, and especially with the damage per second it can bring to the fight, it could easily be an extremely powerful weapon. Especially if you mix it with shield-enhanced... screen enhanced damages and things like that for specials in the future, if you use it with the Altaerians. You know, literally just take the thing, you just got a bunch of enhanced screen resistances, smash its teeth, and then show who's the big dog. But the prize list is also fairly open and spread around, involving various items. And I talked about the blight screen and how it has no negative aspects or anything like that. And it is true, it has absolutely no negative takeaways, no matter how you look at it. It has a very, very low repair time for a very high amount of energy. And since only 10% of damage will be able to slip by it anyways, you don't have to worry too much. Because what does slip through, you have a stupidly healthy ship underneath because of their armors. And that energy is enhanced even further because of the phase screen. And this is another thing that I forgot to bring up. I'm actually going to bring up now. And no, this isn't going to be part of the rant video. This is actually another suggestion for Kickside. If the Altaerians are meant to have enhanced shields and just be extremely powerful and strong and reliant on their shields, remove increased screen energy and enhance the shield energy until a rework or something occurs to enhance the amount of shield strength that the Altaerians have. Because right now, even somebody with a full plasma fleet, as we know, when you're in a fight with Trojans or anything that does full plasma, even if you're moving, you're still going to be taking damage, and for the shots that just, for some reason, the AI hugs your ships, you're taking full damage every shot. Even with 75% plasma resistance, your shield still drops horrifyingly fast. So consider revamping the shield energy and just massively enhancing it over what it currently is, because when they're competing with stuff that's got roughly 2 times as much durability as they do and they're dishing out more damage, there's not much of a contest as to which ship I'm going to use. Naturally, I'm going to use the one that's more powerful. But that about covers it for the rewards here. If there's anything else new here that I'm aware of. Yeah, there isn't anything else new here, so you all know my thoughts on the ship. The weapons, it's more for stupid fun than actual versatility. Unless people are just rushing each other, then yeah, it could be a good weapon. And now let's go ahead and let's hop over to the blueprints. Let's actually see if I can find any type of special. Okay, celestial optics. Enhanced range, enhanced weapon speed, reduced spread, increased damage per second. That is a very, very mediocre weapon speed enhancement. Seriously, oh no, wait, there was another one. It was the phase. No, wait, that was introduced last time. I forgot to talk about it. I'll talk about them later in another video. But we have to wait for this to come out. It only applies to cannons, though. So it reduces the effective damage per second in exchange for better accuracy, range, and weapon speed. That's stupid. I'd rather have it be weighed and not reduce the damage per second and have a better weapon speed, because let's just go ahead and let's take a look at old school energy weapons for a second. As I actually jump back out of the fight. Not you, you're one of the slow ones. You're one of the weak, slow ones. There we go. Much, much better. 4,000 meters per second. $5,000, 3,500, 4,000, 3,500, 3,000, 4,000. Look at that. These are the good weapons in terms of energy weapons because they very rarely miss because of the flight speed and the low range. Well, then you get this thing. It just comes along. And the only thing you want to do is laugh at whoever fires it. Now, first off, even with the Celestial Optics, level 2, you'd hardly be breaking 3,100. Even with Burr active on the fleet and using 3 cruisers, I don't think that it's additive or cumulative, so I don't think the benefit would be of the new number, it would be of the base number. So you're only going to get 20% on top of the base number added to the total number, which is 3,100. So you're not going to be breaking any insane numbers. You're just going to have to push the weapon just to be able to increase the not the firing speed, the actual projectile speed, because that's pretty mediocre. I'm not going to lie. And the Terracan, I can't say the same about it because it's a close-range monster. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. But then you get this thing. It's got good range, but then you see its projectile speed. It could be a better weapon for basing. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. Now, what counters would I recommend for the Inhibitor Battle Cruiser? Well, for one, you're not going to want to send any type of battleship because it's Pharmacon. It'll just phase out, it'll close, and it'll kill it. And since it's doing increased damage to it, it'll just be all the more easy for it. So, let's think here for a second. Alien damage is going to be your primary attack method against it, or void damage. So that leaves quite a few options, unless you want to try the skillful flying, but I mean, outflying something, it just goes invisible and just creeps up on you and just starts stabbing you in the ribs with a knife. Doesn't sound very entertaining. First off is going to be the Bastion itself, because with increased Pharmacon damage, and another thing, Kixai, I think I've said this before, alter the battle cruisers and alter the cruisers' basic damage type so that they affect both cutters and battle cruisers, because they are in turn one and the same ship, just different profile-based builds. But the first one you're going to want is going to be a Bastion, and fighting them level for level is going to be difficult due to the weapon restrictions you have on the Bastion. And before you ask what I mean by that, it's when you're trying to build it to survive a fight against a battle cruiser that's just literally meant to kick the poor cruiser's teeth in, it's pretty difficult. And when it comes right down to it, you can't really match your enemy's damage type, because they could use plasma, energy, projectile. They could use all 4 damage types. You can only protect against one with your screen, or I mean your shell, which will fall extremely quickly. And then you have to rely on armor under that, which all takes up weight. So you have to build something specifically to destroy them quickly. But then it needs to also be able to survive long enough to destroy them. All the while they have, well, actually, let's just show off the one that I have. Let's just talk about a Mark II Bastion. This one. Yeah, this one. Imagine that was, actually I can just change real quick instead of saying imagine. You on that one. This is your Bastion fleet. You got basically 2,400 damage per second on this one ship. Well, mixed. 2,250 damage on this one ship. You're doing increased health damage, but you have to eat through the enemy's shell first. Now, if they match your screen, and let's say you go with this build, and they set up a energy build, when that ship comes out of phase, it's going to have 75% damage resistance against your damage type, so you're hardly doing anything to it. Alternatively, you're going to want mixed damage types. You're going to want to have heavy energy and heavy projectile. And the reason I say projectile is because at close range you're typically not going to miss. You're going to want something with a very low minimum range. Pardon me, sleep's getting to me. But you're going to want something with a very low minimum range. You're going to want to manage your bastion carefully, and if possible use 2 of them, and just more or less play around their shields and pay very close attention to how much shield strength they have left. And that's about it for the bastions fighting them, because I wouldn't recommend strapping armor to them because, well, the battle cruiser has more. Let's just go ahead and let me just show you what I mean. This is the bastion. This is a tank. This is a low level build with a good amount of damage. This is that new battle cruiser. With my fleet level of Fleet Commander Nor, 61, so only add an additional 2,648. So, by default, it has more effective defense than the Bastion does, with the assistance of Tatiana. It's also only 1,000 hit points less, and remember one thing. This damage per second is doubled because it has the dual firing arc. So it's not going to miss. It's going to be hitting just as hard as the Bastion does, but all you have to do is just build to protect yourself from the Bastion. You'll be able to destroy it. So the counter that could do something to it would have to be 2 ships. You'd have to play very, very carefully. Now for the other one, and the one that I like better. No, it's not these. No, it's not those either. 12K Corvettes are fun, but that's not them. Here it is. The alternative to it is going to naturally be this little guy. Now, it's got very low damage per second, but the little monster that is known as the inhibitor has no damage resistance against void damage. So it's going to be losing its screen extremely quickly to this ship. And if it destroys this ship's shields, and even my low... Oh, I should have compared it to one of the low level mark levels, because it's just... Alright, here we go. Look at that. Mark II, and it's just in another class all its own over the little battle cruiser. And again, void damage, its screen will be ripped to pieces by it. How easy is it to acquire Blackguard? Well, during any AW, you can get them from tier 2 and above for the solar shards, so you only need 10,000 or 15,000 solar shards, which is about 5 to 6 people holding a few of them during an alliance war for about half an hour. And then you're good. And all of the weapons I use, they're all extremely low level with the exception of the shields. Well, the shells in this case, I have extremely high level shells on it. And this little thing, it's... By default, it can reach out and touch daemons when they come out of phase, so they can't outrange it. By default. So by default, it's already firing on daemons before they ever have a chance to fire on it. And all the while, you can sit still while you're taking long-range pot shots at daemons. You can pick them apart, and this is where the advantage comes in against the inhibitor. Because you're using a PvP ship, if you beat it in PvP combat because someone jumps you, let's say you have an entire Mark V fleet of these, or a Mark III fleet, and you have full resistance or regeneration, stuff like that in effect, you're going to regenerate over 50% of the damage you take. Actually, it's more like 75%. So you're going to regenerate a good amount of damage you take. And all the while, your enemy's going to lose their ship. And that's something I actually would recommend using, is the Blackguard Cruiser, Mark I or Mark II, to counter the Pharmacon, because it by default outranges, with the current build, daemons. And the reason it does is because it has the 1,000 additional meters on any cannon weapon, so 4,000 by default. And you get an additional 1,500 from the... No, I think I've got that backwards. It should be 2,000 from the... Yeah, 2,000 from the 50%, which brings it to an even of around 6,000 in range due to the void ionized optics. Now, in this case, you're not going to get any other benefits from using the void ionized optics, because they actually do increased shield damage, but you're going to be using it against screens, so it's kind of irrelevant. But the main damage thing that you want is actually just the cannons, because you want them to be hitting the target more than anything else. Because again, no resistance to a certain damage type, it's going to lose out. And I've actually fought against the daemons with the cruiser before. And when they break its shield, which may actually be where I came up with the calculation that outranged them, when its shield collapses, it typically gets to fire a volley that strips most of the screen, if not all of the screen, off the daemon for the build that I've got around it. But those are the two counters that I've played around with and have seen fight them and win. And they don't really require skill on the player's part, just flick the AI on and let it do its thing. Alternatively, you could try something that I typically wouldn't recommend, but it could be hilarious to see the end result, especially if you keep destroying the new ships. And that is trapping them. And before you ask what that is, what you're going to do is you're going to take 3 low-level insta-repair ships, preferably something like a Rancor. Equip each one with a single set of net torpedoes, and then take 2 bastions, blackguards, whatever the preferred ship is, and a movement speed enhancing carrier. And what you're going to do is you're going to have the carrier and stuff be moving in a formation, all the ships after you set them up, away from the AI, the enemy target, with the simple goal of, once the target comes out of phase again, try to stasis them heavily using your Rancors, which are all insta-repair. And once they're stasis, hit them with everything you've got from the carrier and everything like that. And the reason that this is a risky thing is because they could easily destroy everything. Or they could slip up if you space your ships far enough apart, and you could stasis them and you could smash them into oblivion just because it's stupidly hilarious. Now you're going to have to repeat that process about 4 to 5 times because, again, they're going to have multiple ships in the fleet. But that also reduces your effective repair time if they destroy the entirety of your fleet from over 24 hours to only about 12 hours. Which sounds better. Well, actually, it's more like 14. So 14 or 24. Take your pick. But I'll talk a little bit more about the counters as well as the daemon ones I've come up with. And again, I have a trapping... more or less a trapping fight for the daemons as well. That it's stupidly hilarious. And the next thing we'll talk about will be Commander Igneous Keef. Someone that enhances torpedo weapon speed, missile AoE. This is where it caught me a little bit off guard. He enhances torpedo speed but missile AoE instead of torpedo AoE, which would have made more sense. 15% damage bonus, but he also gives you a 10% damage resistance. And if you use 4 battle ships, you get 10% increased damage versus cruisers. Now that actually applies to every ship in your fleet. But no health bonus or anything like that, like Tatiana or Victoria, bring in the big guns and the massive AoE and stuff like that. Thinking about it, she's actually better for the missiles and stuff like that just because of what she does. But I can see a few people enjoying him, specifically for that torpedo boost and the explosive weapon damage. Mainly Pharma players using daemons because Brokenly Overpowered just got more powerful. But that's going to be it, everybody. If you have anything to add to what my tired mind has come up with or spewed forth from this video, feel free to say so below in the comment section. I'll reply if any questions come up, things like that, as I typically do in my slow manner. Oh, wait, I said I was going to hit Altaerian targets. Well, let's hop to that then, before we actually end the video. Going to take out the Behemoth, Victoria, and we're going to go after the Altaerian Platoon B, 90, 100, and 110. Let's go after the 90 first. Alright. Position your Wraith behind the battle dreadnought, whatever you want to call it, super ship. And what you're going to do is, after it's in position, you're going to move just slightly off to the side of the spawn of the initial cutter, and you also want to target it because you want your full fire to be focused on it so you can destroy quickly without activating this one's overdrive until it's ready within kill range, which is that. And it's just a matter of turning once you reach a certain point and just maintaining the rotation of the ship by simply going around like this to maintain your forward speed, but also rotate to bring the new targets into the primary firing arc of the dreadnought. It's amazing how my mind is still working while I'm so tired right now. And this is the same tactic you use for the 90, 110, and the 100. Okay, I don't even have to show you the 110 or anything like that because the attack is the same as this. You literally do the exact same thing, repeat the exact same steps. Focus fire on the cutter on the right, move towards its spawn just a little bit to the left. And just like that, that fight's over. And now let's go ahead and let's recommend prizes. We'll end it like that. So, right off the bat, I would recommend you pick up the Daemon Battleship, boxes for the Daemon, binary torpedo 1, 3, then 2, Note Armor 1 and 2, and the Blight Screen, level 1, 3, and 2. After that, pick yourself up the Inhibitor Battle Cruiser, the Tick Cannon 1, 3, then 2, and then pick up the stuff for the Trojan, which is the Terra Cannons, the Trojan, and that's it. There's not much else to add to the list unless you're playing as Altaerians. Then pick up all of the stuff for plasma resistant damage, things like that. But that's it. That's all I had to talk about. That's all I needed to talk about. If you guys found the video helpful, which I doubt you would because there wasn't too much information aside from the theory crafting or combat tactic crafting, whatever you want to call that. Which again, it's a 50-50, it's a gamble, it's a roll of the dice, it's something you'd have to become experienced in doing just to be able to make it work. But once you do make it work, it's stupidly entertaining. Okay, my tired mind keeps spacing out, so let's go ahead and let's wrap this up quickly. First off, I'd like to say thank you to each and every subscriber. I've been keeping an eye on the subscriber count lately, and I've just been seeing it rise up and up and up and up, and it was amazing when I hit 100 subscribers, and here I am around 450. And the number just boggles my mind with how many of you follow the content, how many of you watch the content. It's just, thank you. Thank each and every single one of you. And now, for any of you that are looking for more videos like this, there's an entire VEGA playlist, stuff like that. You can find it easily through the videos menu under the channel's listing. There is some ARC videos, stuff like that. I still am working on the build that I'm currently working on, I just keep making it more and more extravagant. And it's slowly pushing my computer, which is hilarious to see it struggle a bit, but the frame rate's maintaining fairly well. But be safe out there and avoid everybody. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.